In this podcast episode, Jessie Inchauspé, known as the glucose goddess, explores the fascinating biological adaptations of the female body during pregnancy, with a focus on glucose metabolism and its impact on fetal brain development. Jessie discusses the natural increase in insulin resistance, the importance of key nutrients like choline, omega-3 fatty acids, and protein, and addresses widespread myths and challenges faced by pregnant women. She also provides practical strategies for managing blood sugar spikes, navigating pregnancy nutrition, and highlights the crucial role of maternal health before and during pregnancy for long-term child wellness. Jessie explains that increased insulin resistance during pregnancy is an evolutionary and physiological adaptation designed to keep glucose circulating in the mother's bloodstream. This adaptation ensures the developing baby receives adequate glucose, which is critical for energy-intensive organ and brain development. As pregnancy progresses, the same carbohydrate intake causes higher and longer blood sugar spikes. This response prevents glucose from being stored in maternal fat, muscles, and liver, making more glucose available for the baby via the placenta. Historically, when glucose sources came mainly from low-sugar foods such as roots and fruits, this was advantageous. However, in today's environment with abundant processed sugars and desserts, these amplified glucose spikes can become excessive, posing risks to both mother and child. Pregnant women often experience increased cravings for sugar, partly due to brain dopamine responses that encourage sugar consumption as an evolutionary survival mechanism. Today's high-sugar food environment, combined with pregnancy-induced insulin resistance, leads to unnaturally large blood glucose spikes. Jessie highlights that these spikes directly affect the baby's glucose exposure, raising concerns over long-term metabolic and neurological health. She encourages awareness and modest dietary adjustments to manage glucose levels using simple hacks like consuming sugary foods after meals rather than on an empty stomach, and incorporating light physical activity afterward to help regulate blood sugar. The conversation touches on societal trends of women having children later in life, which is associated with increased risks such as gestational diabetes and preeclampsia. Jessie and the host reflect on how environmental factors like abundant sugar, pollutants, and sedentary lifestyles compound these risks. They emphasize that despite the challenges, pregnant women possess significant agency and superpowers to positively influence their baby's development. However, this potential is often overshadowed by fear-mongering, misinformation, and mixed messaging from healthcare and social circles. Jessie stresses a paradigm shift away from the outdated notion of a pregnant woman as merely an oven carrying a baby, instead describing the mother as soil and the baby as the seed. This metaphor highlights how maternal nutrition, lifestyle, and environment directly shape the baby's development beyond genetic destiny. She advocates for empowering pregnant women with evidence-based knowledge and practical tools to support optimal fetal growth, urging focus on what can be controlled rather than succumbing to anxiety over risks. Choline emerges as the first critical nutrient discussed. This molecule profoundly impacts fetal brain structures involved in learning, memory, and attention. It primarily comes from animal foods like eggs, liver, meat, and fish, with plant sources being less abundant, e.g. soy. Jessie reveals that around 90% of pregnant women do not consume enough choline, usually falling short of the recommended 450 milligrams per day. Insufficient choline intake is linked to serious brain development issues, including increased miscarriage risk and lifelong cognitive deficits. She recommends consuming about 4 eggs daily or supplementing, particularly for plant-based diets, to meet these critical needs. Jessie explains that 95% of a person's neurons are formed during fetal development and are never replaced. Neurons created in utero form the foundation for lifelong brain function, making early nutrient availability especially crucial. She cites a study where prenatal choline supplementation improved infant cognitive performance, measured by faster reaction times to novel visual stimuli, a predictor of higher IQ. This research underscores how maternal nutrition in pregnancy can have enduring effects on a child's brain resilience and cognitive potential. Addressing common pregnancy challenges, Jessie shares her personal experience with severe nausea and food aversions, especially to protein-rich foods like eggs in the first trimester. She recommends small, practical steps, such as consuming almonds first thing upon waking to mitigate queasiness, and capitalizing on times when aversions subside to increase intake of nutrient-dense foods. She emphasizes the body's reserves can provide some buffer, but encourages doing the best possible within those limitations. Jessie revisits glucose, clarifying that maternal blood sugar levels essentially equal fetal blood sugar levels due to placental exchange. Babies require glucose, especially in the third trimester, but it is best sourced from complex carbohydrates like rice and sweet potatoes rather than sugary desserts. She advocates keeping added sugars below 25 grams daily and using timing and physical activity to dampen glucose spikes. For example, having sweets after a meal and following consumption with light exercise reduces rapid rises and falls in blood glucose, helping to prevent excessive cravings and potential metabolic disturbances in both mother and child. Jessie provides historical context from the UK sugar rationing period, 1940 to 1953, where average sugar intake dropped to about 40 grams daily due to wartime restrictions. A natural experiment found that children born during this period later exhibited a 15% lower lifetime risk of type 2 diabetes compared to those born before and after when sugar consumption was higher. This illustrates the long-term benefits of moderating sugar intake during pregnancy, even if not entirely eliminating sweets, reinforcing the importance of glucose management for fetal metabolic programming. The third major pillar of prenatal nutrition covered is omega-3 fatty acids, essential fats building the neural connections in the developing brain. Found mainly in fatty fish like salmon, sardines, and mackerel, omega-3s support cognitive development and later IQ. Jessie highlights that about 70% of pregnant women do not meet the daily recommendation of 300 milligrams due to decreased fish consumption. She personally ate fatty fish regularly and supplemented to maintain optimal levels. The buildup of omega-3 stores preconception and early pregnancy provides a protective reserve during the critical first months when intake may be reduced. Protein is often seen only as a muscle-building nutrient, but Jessie emphasizes its essential role in forming virtually every tissue and immune function. As a newborn is roughly 50% protein by weight, excluding water, maternal protein intake must increase significantly, up to 1 to 6 grams per kilogram of body weight in the second and third trimesters, to support fetal growth. Many women fall short, which forces the body to break down muscle to compensate. Jessie shares her approach of consistently consuming protein-rich meals, including a daily protein-packed snack using whey isolate and yogurt, and stresses that excessive protein is rarely a concern relative to deficiency. Discussing neurological development, Jessie introduces microglia, immune cells in the fetal brain tasked with pruning damaged neurons to optimize brain architecture. High maternal inflammation, often linked to sustained high glucose levels, can overactivate microglia. This may lead to excessive pruning, potentially contributing to neurodevelopmental vulnerabilities. Studies associate gestational diabetes with higher risks of psychiatric disorders in offspring, possibly mediated by this inflammation microglia pathway. This adds urgency to managing glucose and inflammation via diet and lifestyle during pregnancy. Jessie references compelling animal research where pregnant rats that exercised on treadmills produced offspring with twice the maze-solving speed and 80% fewer anxiety symptoms compared to inactive controls. While human data is less controlled, observational studies support that even modest maternal movement enhances fetal brain development and resilience. Jessie encourages pregnant women without contraindications to maintain regular, moderate physical activity such as walking or weightlifting, countering myths that exercise harms the baby's heart or blood flow. Jessie addresses harmful misconceptions, including the idea that the baby will get what it needs regardless of maternal diet, and that the mother is a passive oven rather than an influential co-creator. She underscores that many pregnant women feel overwhelmed by contradictory advice, social pressures, and fear-based messaging online and from well-meaning professionals. To combat this, she advocates equipping mothers with accessible scientific knowledge and simple, effective nutritional strategies that empower rather than scare. Jessie shares her own emotionally challenging experience of a silent miscarriage early in pregnancy, explaining the lack of awareness she initially had about how common miscarriages are. She emphasizes the importance of normalizing conversations around pregnancy loss to reduce stigma and isolation. The personal anecdote highlights the complexity of pregnancy journeys and the need for compassionate support and information for families navigating these challenges. Regarding infant care, Jessie describes breastfeeding her son for 7 months and transitioning him to formula and solids, focusing on continuing nutrient-rich feeding. She prioritizes choline-rich foods like egg yolks daily, along with vegetables, healthy fats, and whole fruits for ongoing brain development throughout early childhood, reinforcing that key nutritional needs do not end at birth. Jessie discusses launching a high-quality protein powder made from Irish grass-fed milk, designed to mix smoothly with coffee for busy parents needing convenient nutrition. She also endorses an affordable continuous glucose monitor, Stello, aimed at helping individuals track blood sugar easily without prescription or complexity. These tools align with her mission to translate science into practical support for improving maternal and family health. Throughout the episode, Jessie and the host reflect on broader societal issues affecting pregnancy health, such as food systems, sedentary lifestyles, and delayed childbearing, and the importance of early, holistic interventions spanning preconception through early childhood. The tone is hopeful and pragmatic, emphasizing that although not all factors are controllable, informed choices and small tweaks can yield significant positive impacts on next-generation health.